It can be very concerning when the wheels stop turning. Nations going on lockdown, giant businesses and economies or super economies taking hits. However, when we revisit some of Allah's signs in the Quran, we find out that this surreal experience has already been mentioned to us long before. Contrary to what many of us may feel, this isn't something out of the natural order. And not only that, but there are some weighty, heavy lessons that come with it too. Welcome to Surah Shura. Allah says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ الْجَوَارِ فِي الْبَحْرِ كَالْأَعْلَامِ. And of His signs are the ships in the sea like mountains. إِنْ يَشَأْ يُسْكِنِ الرِّيحَ فَيَظْلَلْنَ رَوَاكِدَ عَلَى ظَهْرِهِ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِكُلِّ صَبَّارٍ شَكُورٍ. So if He so willed, He could still stop the wind, and they would remain motionless on its surface. Indeed, in that there are signs for everyone patient and grateful. So first, Allah talks about the ships that sail at sea, to be great like mountains. Now, I agree, these ships today might feel a little irrelevant. Think about it though. What are we as a modern civilization without our ships? Ships have always been, a symbol of our global trade, our technology, which our economies are built on. A great gift that Allah taught the making of to Nuh alayhi salam from the very beginning. A sign to behold. Ships are a symbol of all our economic trade, progress, and advancement into the dynamics we have today as a global society. It really is appropriate for Allah to compare ships to mountains. Now that we understand this context, let's see where Allah takes us next. We are told about the possibility of Allah making these ships stand still, wherever they may be on their course. So to be unmoved and completely motionless, despite all kinds of resources at our human disposal. In essence, Allah demonstrates to us how the world as we know it could come to a standstill. This isn't a call for panic. This isn't a reason to fear that the divine planning has been, miscalculated. This isn't a signal to begin our never-ending pessimism. Allah calls instances like this as a part of His signs. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ. These are signs that are meant for those who are patient in their difficulty and those grateful for their blessings. Those are the ones that would come to understand and appreciate this whole grand experience. In other words, this very confusing episode when we are facing is actually an opportunity, a gifted opportunity to reflect on God's absolute power and control over all else. We now get to remember what we always knew, but we haven't had the pleasure of seeing firsthand, when Allah just dominates. So where true control lies and where the winds really come from, we get to see that. They never came from the elite making chess moves or from the companies that paid our salaries. Following this wake-up call, a few verses later, Allah ensures a change of perspective to take place. Whether we find ourselves on the good or the bad end during this whole trial, this test, there is still one truth that never changes. And Allah says, فَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَمَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَمَا عِندَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. So whatever good that you have experienced in this life, whatever enjoyment you've ever had, it is but for enjoyment of the worldly life. But what is with Allah is better and more lasting for those who have believed and upon their master or their Lord they rely. This whole dilemma in the midst of economic setbacks, job insecurity, and outbreaks, whether we make it or not, the gains and losses are nothing in the bigger picture. These are all affairs of a much, much smaller and fragile bubble. A bubble of this worldly life, making all the gains you will ever achieve as a just mata', a basic fleeting enjoyment. That's what everything you could ever have in this world will ever amount to. And so with that, Allah concludes, and for what is with me is much better and more lasting for those of you that believed and those of you who have shown reliance. So this belief and reliance is the real currency we should be worried about in gaining in times like this. So keep your eyes on that prize and always maintain that focus, and always remember that everything wavers, everything changes except Him.